If you spend any time online, I'm sure that you're going to see that the modern human has many problems with romantic relationships. It looks like the many advancements in our societies and in our technologies did not really help with romantic connection. And today, I would like to talk about that. I would like to specifically talk about what a romantic relationship is, because I am a doctor, I am a practicing physician, and that's what I do. I dissect things. And today I would like to dissect romantic relationships. So let's start, because romantic relationships is an abstract entity. Let's start with the linguistic form. Romantic relationship. It's a relationship, it's in a romantic manner. So what is a relationship then? We can define relationship as a dynamic, as interactions between two entities. I'm saying between two entities because the things that have relationship doesn't have to be humans, doesn't have to be more than one human. You can have a relationship with yourself. You can have a relationship with your coffee machine. You can have a relationship with the whole society. And these are all relationships. Well, so what is a relationship then? We said that it's an interaction. It's a set of interactions in some way, in some capacity. But what are they? What is going on? What do they do? Because in our society, and especially in social media, the way that we depict relationships, the relationship with society, the relationship with yourself, it looks like it's very effective. It has many effects on individuals. So what do they do? Like I said, it can be defined as interactions, but those interactions can have different moods, different causes, different intentions, different manners, and different results in that regard. So let's start with your coffee machine. Can two inanimate objects have relationships with each other? Well, they can, because I saw my tablet, as I was talking about. My tablet has a relationship with its charger. They both help each other, but mainly my tablet is getting better off in this relationship. Anyways, let's start with you and your coffee machine. So you provide your coffee machine electricity to work, water so that it can do its job properly, and coffee so that the end result, the end product, can be what it was made for, which is hot coffee. And you provide those things to your coffee, and the coffee machine can provide you with coffee which energizes you, helps you, calms you. It is interesting to say that coffee can calm me, but some people find comfort in having hot beverages. Because of that, you can have many different outputs or many different results from the thing that that machine is giving you. So relationships can have this dynamic that both things can affect each other, and that effect can be beneficial, but that effect can also be negative. Like if you use your coffee machine a little too hard, it can break. You might be the reason why it breaks, or eventually your machine is going to wear out because you have used it way too many times for way too many years. Or if you let it somewhere, it's going to rust, and that is also going to affect the machine negatively. So as we can see, interacting with the interaction doesn't have to be an active action. It can be non-action, it can be not doing anything, and it can also affect that machine, and that can also be defined as a relationship, because you buying the machine and not using it is also in some way of your doing, and the machine is affected of your doings in some manner. So from looking at this example, we can assume that in a relationship, the end result, what we get from that relationship, is mainly based on what we do in those dynamics, in those interactions. That can be concluded, but like I said, those actions doesn't have to be an action. if you know what I mean. You don't have to physically do something. You're not doing anything can also be an interaction, because we see that in many human interactions. So from your coffee machine, let's get to your family. As a child, your parents brought you up, and when you were growing up, they provided you food. They provided you a safe place to stay. They provided things that can develop your brain, develop your body, so that you can grow into a mature human. And in that relationship, what we see in society is that many parents can expect different things from the relationship that they have with their children. We see parents just expecting a healthy human being growing up under their roof and them living a good life, and every now and then interacting with them so that they can have some company with those children. And in that example, many of the aspects of that sentence can be exaggerated for each family. Some parents would expect their children to give them a lot of company throughout their lives, even when they're ill or when they're in need. They would expect their children to come and help them. Some parents might want their children to grow up to perfectly mature and perfectly successful human beings. Some families, unfortunately, expect their children to support them in some capacity, in some material capacity, when they grow up, because they think it is like an investment when the child is growing up, because they have invested so much time and energy to them. They expect some return in that dynamic. And apart from this example, we also see parents not giving as much as attention to the children that they have, and that non-action affecting that children as well. And the mild example that I gave and the extreme ones that I listed afterwards, I think you can see from those examples that those many expectations, those different expectations and different approaches to that parental relationship, parental dynamic you have with your children, can have many different effects on the children. Families expecting their children to be very successful can be felt as too much pressure from the children, or can be felt as other things that I cannot imagine right now. The material pressure can also feel like the relationship that children has with their parents feels transactional and it doesn't have emotions. It can feel like that to that children. Company expectation, the friendship expectation of parents can be felt as not sincere from the children, because it feels like they have invested something again and they're expecting, even though it is abstract and it is not material, it is still kind of a transaction. It can be felt like a transaction to that children. So we can see even the first relationship we have on this earth can have many different sides and can have people can have different expectations from those things. There can be many other expectations from this parental or familial relationship that I am not listing. Some knowingly and some other because my imagination is not that big to imagine every familial dynamic on this earth. What I'm trying to say is that even a basic familial relationship can have these many sides, because even the relationship you have with your coffee machine can be variable, can have different outcomes, can have different dynamics, you can have different experiences. Maybe your coffee machine is not very stable and your coffee machine breaks way too much and you feel frustrated because you have that coffee machine. But when we have relationships that involve more than one human, interaction becomes complex, because you start to have social expectations, you start to have social norms, you start to have personal expectations from that relationship, and it becomes way too complicated, because you can be frustrated to your coffee machine, but in some families being frustrated with your parents is not accepted, and because of that, human relationships specifically, are very complex. And in that regard, I think it is very safe to say that relationships that humans experience are to their own. What you want from that relationship is to your own. You can't talk about what we can expect and what we cannot expect. But even in a family relationship, we see throughout history that the expectations and how those relationships work have changed tremendously throughout time compared to the complete human history. Children working in factories were not that long ago, if you compare it to the whole human history. Not even in factories. Children used to be very valuable workforce most of human history, and that has changed very recently. So we see that human relationships having different sides, different expectations, because we have human elements in them, and them changing quite recently, very dramatically. We have different relationships with our children, we have different relationships with our parents, we have different relationships with our friends. Friendships can be way more variable than the examples that I give in parental relationships, because you can have acquaintances, you can have colleagues, you can have good friends, you can have close friends, and all those can have different outcomes, all those can have different sides. You can experience them very differently. In some examples, the things that you get from those relationships doesn't really change the type of relationship you have. You can get material benefits from a close friend, or you can have good dialogues, very deep, very emotional connecting dialogues with your colleagues, and that doesn't affect the nature of that relationship that much. Or it might not be, it might change it. You can become close friends with your colleagues, or you can become colleagues with your good friends as well. As you can see, in human experience, the relationships that we have with each other can be way too varied for us to define them in concrete. We cannot make laws about relationships, human relationships, like we make laws about crimes. That is a different topic, but relationships are harder to define. There are way too many variables. We are talking about intellectual entities interacting with each other, and those interactions can have way too many sides and way too many inputs for us to define them. So from that regard, the relationships are these complex dynamics between two entities. As we can see, even the relationship you have with your coffee machine can be very extraordinary to some other people, even though it is normal for you. So these are relationships. Romantic relationships. What does the word romantic add to that noun? Add to that entity that is relationships? Romance might mean something like two people. It doesn't have to be two people. Romance might mean something like people wanting to become intimate with each other. But I'm giving a very loose definition, because that definition as well can be different for people, for each people. I didn't say two people, because some people choose to have romantic relationships, or some people choose to have intimacy with more than one people, and that intimacy can be different for each person. How much intimacy are we talking about? What does that intimacy behold? Does it also include sexual intimacy? How much of sexual intimacy does it include? How much love is included in that intimacy? Does that intimacy have to include love as well? Because in romantic relationships, if you look around yourself, you can see in romantic relationships people having different amounts of these variables. Some people don't have that much love in their relationships, but they are still happy. They can still be content with their romantic relationship. Some people might not have as much sexual intimacy in their relationships, but those people can also be happy with what they have. Some people might just have loving and emotional connection, and for some other people that might be too much emotional connection. And because of these differing variables, it is also hard to concretely define romantic relationships, even romance, and go out with that definition to find yourself some romantic relationship or relationships, whatever floats your boat. and get about your day and call it done, because it is very hard to define them. It is also very hard to define what romantic relationship one person expects, because we change our minds throughout each experience. Not everyone has this wide romantic relationship experience, especially when we are young adults. And when we are young adults, we start to experience things. We start to learn ourselves basically, and see what we expect and what we don't expect, and what we can handle, what we can accept as normal, and what we cannot bear in a relationship. Those things all come from experience, and those things all come from us going out in the world and meeting people and experiencing these things, and then making our minds for what we can do in our lives. So from the picture I painted, I think you are aware that I defined romantic relationships way too loosely. It is not a concrete thing. It might be concrete for you, but that can also change in the future. And because of this nature of relationships, and especially romantic relationships, I think it is best to approach relationships with an open mind. Because like the example I gave when I was trying to define romantic relationships, you might not want to have a romantic relationship with just one person. You might want to choose, or you might want to have romantic relationships with more than one person. And in that case, what you have to go through, what you are going to experience is going to be different from the person next to you who is a monogamous. Or you might be willing to have less sexual intimacy, but you might be very in need of emotional connection, and that experience can unfold in a different way compared to the person on your other side, for whom sexual intimacy is way more important than emotional connection. And that person might have to go through a very different experience, and might have to discover other things, might have to learn they can or cannot do, and you're going to learn your own experience. And you can also change your mind after some time. You experience the things that you want to experience, or you might also experience things that you don't want to experience, and then you're going to change your mind eventually. So because of that, even though being open-minded can help, still being in a romantic relationship is hard, because it is your own discovery journey. I think we can all see this unfold, as technology is not very helpful with our romantic lives, even though there are some statistics that show dating apps can help people have stable long-term relationships. Many people experience different things compared to that statistic, and looks like this human nature of romantic relationships, how human nature affects romantic relationships, is not going to change very soon by technology. I think we're still on our own with what we do and what we're going to experience, what we choose to experience, and we are out here experiencing things and learning and changing according to those learnings. I would like to make it clear that the examples or the aspects of romantic relationships I gave in this video are not definite, or not limited to the ones that I gave. You might have material expectations from your romantic relationships. You might have other, dynamic expectations from your relationship. And those might be okay. You might find ways to do them, but you might have to be still open-minded to try them. Because our favorite word to use when we're talking about relationships, narcissism, you can still have people that choose to devote themselves to you and make you a priority in consentful ways, because there are those dynamics as well. But those dynamics are also an experience, and you have to learn some things in those experiences as well to make them work. But still, socially normal, socially expected marriages can also have learning curves as well. I think we're all in the same in this regard, but I think it is hard for us to see that we're all in the same, because our expectations, our experiences make us feel very different to everyone else. I would like to say that we're not. We just have different experiences or expectations, and we all have to learn different things that makes us feel different, but we all have to take the same risk, and make the same learning in some capacity. And that is the part that unites us about relationships. The human nature unites us in that regard. But because the things that we expect are very variable, very different, that makes us feel different. So this was one observation I made from social media and from my friends, actually, that even though relationships are very dynamic, I see people trying to make very concrete definitions about relationships. People talking about this cannot happen in a relationship, but other person, enjoys experiencing that. And I want to point it out and talk about it a little, because even people that we call smart, I assume that my friends are smart, as we all have been graduated from medical school. We have some, capacity to think very deeply. Even my friends, even I have struggled with romantic relationships. And yeah, it is a very different human nature. I don't think being smart or being, equipped with right equipment can help you in romantic relationships, but you being open to experience things and making, I'm not going to say, I was going to say judgment, but I don't think it is judgment. You making conclusions from those experiences about yourself, what you can take and what you don't want, or what you expect. And moving along according to those learnings is the best approach to romantic relationships as of now, until we discover some new things about human psychology. Maybe that can change, but I think for now that is the best approach you can have towards romantic relationships. I'm not an expert in romantic relationships. I'm a family doctor, but these were my observations that I want to talk about. So you can take what I have said with a grain of salt, but I wanted to share what I have observed. If you have liked what I talked about in this video, you can like the video. You can subscribe to my channel to see more videos like this. You can comment down below your opinions. I would like to see them. I would like to learn different experiences people have in romantic relationships, or different ideas, opinions about romantic relationships. I'm very curious about what you think about this situation. So yeah, until next time. Take care of yourselves. Bye.